Hello Octoprint fans, former lurker here. Today I'm going to show you how to set up a DSLR camera that doesn't download images to the Pi. It's going to download them to your SD card, and that's going to speed up image acquisition. That can improve print quality, and honestly, the speed up is pretty substantial. In a lot of cases, it can take half as much time to acquire an image. That means that your extruder has less time to ooze, and that your images are captured a little faster, and that reduces print time. So this is going to increase quality, and it's going to decrease print time over the standard DSLR guide. Okay, so first thing, let's go to the Octolapse wiki page, and you can get there by searching for Octolapse in GitHub. It should be the first link that pops up. Once you get here, click on the wiki link. The wiki should open, and if you scroll down, you'll find the guide for configuring a DSLR with no image download. Now, if you haven't used a DSLR with Octolapse before, you're going to want to first follow this configuring a DSLR guide. Do it entirely. This method that we're going to show in this video is a little more advanced. It's also less likely to work for your DSLR than the method that's shown in this guide, configuring a DSLR. And obviously, if you have not installed Octolapse, you're going to want to get that installed, set up, and working first. And you can find a guide here under Getting Started. It'll show you how to get everything going. Definitely make sure Octolapse is working and that you've got some experience before you try any of these DSLR guides. These are advanced guides. They're not intended to be the first thing that you do with Octolapse. And I think if you get some experience with Octolapse before you start these, you're going to have a better experience. So again, make sure you follow first the Getting Started guide, and then the Configuring a DSLR guide, and then you can continue on with this no download guide. So let's click on that. Okay, and there's a description here about why you might want to do this and what you might want to do first, and we've already covered that. So let's go and move ahead to step one. So the first thing we're going to want to do is connect to our Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to use PuTTY. If you follow the other guides, you are already well aware of this and how to use it. So I'm going to connect. It's asking me to log in. So I'm going to enter my username as the default. And I'm going to copy my password and right click in PuTTY to paste it. And then it opens a terminal window. So if you switch back to the wiki, we want to change to the scripts folder. So I'm going to copy that out, switch back to the terminal, and we're just going to navigate to the scripts directory. Okay, now the first thing we want to do is check out what kind of options we have for a Gphoto 2 setting called Capture Target. And this setting is going to determine where the images are saved. So if you switch back to the wiki and copy this command out, this is going to query the camera, and I'm assuming your camera's plugged in as well. If it's not, of course, it's not going to work. So let's switch back to the terminal, paste in this command, and you see it shows us some options here. 0 is internal RAM. That's the default setting for my camera. And 1 is the memory card. So whatever choice number your camera displays for the memory card, that's the one you're going to want to pick. So in my case, it's 1. So remember that number. Go back to the wiki. And we're going to want to create a script that we're going to use to tell the camera to save any images that it captures to the SD card. And I'm going to call that initialize camera save to SD. It's a little verbose, but then you know exactly what it does. Let's copy that out. Let's switch back to our terminal window. I'm going to paste that in. And this is going to open up Nano. It's probably going to open a blank file here. If it doesn't, then you have another script named initialize camera save to SD. But if it's blank, switch back to the wiki page and copy this script. Now, every line of this is important. Make sure you copy before this particular pound sign and all the way to the end. And if your capture target, the one that I had you look at earlier, is different than 1, replace this number with whatever it is for your camera. In my case, it's 1. So I'm going to copy that out, switch back to the terminal window. I'm going to right click to paste it in. Now we're going to want to save it. So Control O, and we're going to save it as the same file name we entered when we opened the Nano program. So hit enter. Now that saves. Control X is going to exit. Now if we do an LS, we will see that we have this new initialize camera saved to SD script right here. Now this is not considered an executable yet, so we have to add executable permissions. So if you switch back to the wiki, you'll see that I have this little command here, this chmod, that adds the execute permission to this script. So I'm going to copy this whole line out. I'm going to switch back to our terminal. I'm going to paste it in. Now that's going to make our script executable. So if we go back to the wiki, the next thing we want to do is test it. So we're basically going to just run that script and make sure that there aren't any errors. So I copied that, switch back to the terminal, paste it in. You can see I'm running from the current directory, and I'm running the initialize camera save to SD script. And it detects my camera and it runs with no errors. If you have errors here, you may want to take a look at the troubleshooting page. I don't have any info on how to debug this right now, but if you click on troubleshooting and then find cameras, hopefully I'll have some steps by the time you read this to fix any common errors that you're likely to encounter. All right, so I'm going back to that script. Okay, so now we're going to create the snapshot trigger script. And this is going to tell your camera to take an image or take a snapshot. And it's as soon as it's done acquiring the image, it's going to return, even if it's still saving it to SD card. Now, not all cameras do this in the same way. And unfortunately, some cameras wait until the image is saved, but it depends on your camera. Hopefully, it's a little bit better behaved than the worst case scenario. We're going to copy this command to create a new script called trigger snapshot.sh. I'm going to copy that in, switch to the terminal, paste it, hit enter. Again, we get an empty Nano window. Switch back to the wiki, and you will see this script. Again, make sure you copy this very first line, including that pound, all the way to the end. Right click, copy, switch back to your terminal, and paste that in with a right click. And you'll see the entire script appear here. Now I'm going to save that, Control O, hit enter to confirm, and Control X to exit. So now again, just like the other script we made, we need to give this script executable permissions. And if you switch to the wiki, I have a chmod, another one, add executable permission to the trigger snapshot script. So copy that out, switch back to the terminal, paste it in, hit enter, and now your script is executable. So the next thing we're going to do is test that script and make sure it runs without errors. So if you go back to the wiki, just copy that next line. It's run trigger snapshot from the current directory. So we'll copy that all out, switch back to the terminal, paste it in, and when you hit enter, you should hear your camera kind of make its snapshot noise. Oh, just heard it. And it took a picture. Now I recommend pausing the video, walk over to your camera, and make sure that it took a picture. Make sure that it's saved on the SD card, even if it didn't throw an error. If it doesn't, take a look at that troubleshooting page. Hopefully by now I've got some steps for some common problems to fix with any errors that are likely to occur. So switch back to the wiki. And the next thing that we're going to do is configure Octolapse, because we've got everything set up now that we need in order to use this no download script. I will say that you may want to look at this next section. I do have a little troubleshooting guide that explains for cameras that don't return at the right time, some workarounds that I've noticed. So you may want to take a look at that. But if things worked well for now, just move on to step 3, keep in mind you may want to look at this if you have problems while you actually run your print. Okay, so let's switch to the Octoprint web page. And because I just got done following that DSLR guide that I showed you earlier, I already have a camera here that's set up to take snapshots through my Nikon. But I'm going to go ahead and add a new profile. So let's hit Cameras. I'm going to add a profile. I'm going to name it D5200. I'm going to call it No Download. Okay. And then in your camera type here, make sure you pick External Camera Script, because we're running a DSLR. The DSLR is going to execute scripts to take its pictures, and this is the right setting for that. So the first thing we have to enter, you'll notice it's complaining that it's blank, is the snapshot acquire script. And this is the script that is going to actually take a snapshot. So if we switch back to the wiki, we followed a few of these steps. Right here, this is the script we created to take a snapshot, trigger snapshot. Here's the path that it's in. So we're going to want the full path of the script. I'm going to go ahead and copy that out. I'm going to go back to the Octoprint page to this new camera profile. I'm going to paste that snapshot acquire script in right here. And then I'm going to click this test script button. And when I click it, it's going to run this script. It's going to apply a timeout of, right now, this is in milliseconds, so every 5,000 milliseconds is 1 second. So it's going to time out in 5 seconds. Let's add a couple zeros here. We don't want it to time out while we're testing. So I'm just going to increase that. And then when I hit test script, it's going to run the script and tell me whether or not it succeeded or not. Now, if it failed, it's going to return like a red error message. If it succeeded, it's going to either return a green or an orange box. The orange box says that the script didn't return any errors, but no image was downloaded. Now, because we're using this no download script, this is not going to return an image. So we're not going to get a green box. We're going to get an orange one, and that's okay. And if you got questions about that, go ahead and click on this question mark here. It shows some information that might be useful. So I'm going to hit test script. It says it's testing with the timeout of 500 seconds, and it says partial script success. So it worked, but no snapshots were found. And that's actually good in our case because we don't want these images downloading. So let's close that. That means this is working. Let's switch back to the wiki. Now, the next thing we need to configure is the before print start script. Because what we want to do is we want to tell the camera before the print starts to not save the images to RAM, but rather save them to SD. So we're going to have to run this script before any print that we want to use this no download method. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to switch back to Octoprint. I'm going to find the before print start script, and I'm going to paste in the location of my before print start script. And then again, I have a test button here. It's going to run this script. It's testing it, and it came back with success. Now you should get a green box here. If you don't, hopefully I've added some steps to the troubleshooting guide. You may want to check that out. All right, let's go back to the wiki. And the next thing we have to do is save our profile, which we'll do, and then we want to run a test print. So let's go ahead and save our profile. So scroll to the bottom and hit save, and then close. Now you'll notice we've got a new profile here, the no download profile that we just created. Now you never want to run more than one DSLR, like the same DSLR at the same time. So this is the same camera, these two. They're running the same scripts. We don't want to have more than one enabled at the same time. So I'm going to disable this one because maybe someday I want to use it again. But for now, I want to use this no download script. You'll notice it says camera disabled here because I have this D5200 selected. If I change to the no download version of the profile, it goes away, but it says no snapshot's been acquired. Now, since this camera is not going to download any images to your Raspberry Pi, this will never go away. So you'll never see any snapshots from your camera in Octolapse or anywhere else except on your camera. So just keep that in mind. So it's one of the downsides of using the no download script is that you won't see the snapshots that are taken. So now we want to run a test print. So let's select test mode enabled. You'll see a little message here telling you test mode is enabled. Test mode is going to prevent Octolapse, or it's going to prevent your printer from warming up. Your bed or your extruder, they're going to stay cool. It's going to prevent any extrusion commands, so no filament should be extruded. It's going to keep your fans from turning on. So it's a much faster way to test your settings than running a live print. Now I recommend that you unload your filament at this point, because it is possible, even though test mode has been a feature of Octolapse for a long time, and it's been proven pretty stable, it's a good idea to unload your filament. So go ahead and do that. And then once you've got that finished, you're going to want to pick a very fast, like short, easy to print file. Like right now I have a test queue. I'm going to pick that, and then we're going to hit print. And if you switch over, now this is a snapshot plan preview. If you don't know what this is, you haven't followed the getting started guide, please do that. And that'll tell you what this is all about. So now I'm going to accept it. And immediately your print should start. My print is now homing. That takes a little bit of time, so I'm going to use this time to show you another feature that you may not be aware of. If you go to the Octolapse tab and scroll to the bottom, there's this snapshot plan info. As long as you're running one of the smart triggers, if you're not running a smart trigger, you may consider trying that because it's really cool. And it'll basically show you a preview of all the snapshots that are going to be taken. It'll show you how many are going to be taken, where the extruder is going to be when it starts, when it takes a snapshot, and when it returns. And then you can even animate them down here. So it's really kind of cool to see what's going on. And then if we look at our camera, it's going to take a snapshot. And I just heard the click. The snapshot's been acquired. It says that 3 snapshots were taken, but you'll notice I still don't have a preview here because the snapshots weren't downloaded. And that's exactly what we want. So I'm actually going to let it take one more set of snapshots. It shouldn't take too long. You'll see this counter increase again by another 3, and then I'm going to cancel the print. It's acquiring an image. I hear my printer snap, and it's done. I'm going to go ahead and cancel. Then it's going to start rendering videos. And you'll notice that I got a little error message here, and it said that not enough images were acquired for my DSLR camera. That's okay, because the images are all on the SD card. They haven't been downloaded to the Pi, so Octolapse cannot render a video for them. So it's only going to render videos for the 2 webcams that I'm using right now. If you're not using any webcams, it wouldn't render anything. So at this point, you want to go to your camera, and you want to look at your SD card, and you want to make sure that it captured images. You want to make sure they're in focus. You want to make sure that the white balance looks right. I recommend using manual focus, manual white balance, manual exposure to get a good image quality. Go ahead and download those images, import them into whatever program you want to use to render your time lapse. Make sure they look good. And if they don't look good, adjust your camera settings, come back in here, run another print and test mode, and rinse and repeat that process until you're happy with your snapshot images and with your final time lapse. And now once you're happy with your image quality, go ahead and disable test mode and run another print. Definitely make sure that Octolapse is done rendering. You don't want to start prints while Octolapse is rendering, even though it'll let you. It might mess up your print quality if your CPU usage is too high. But then go ahead and start a test print, and hopefully now your DSLR is set up 100% for no download. You'll notice the images are going to capture a lot faster. Your prints will take less time. You'll have better quality. All around, I think it's a better method than the download method. But you may notice you may have had problems getting your camera to work. Unfortunately, not all cameras support this method, but it's more likely that they support this one than the more advanced deferred download method, which I'll drop a link to in the guide. If your camera did work with this no download method, you may want to try that guide out, because that one lets you not only save the time by not downloading images via USB, but it'll also download them at the end of your print and then let Octolapse render a video. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. So I recommend taking a look at that. Now, the other thing that I'd like to point out is at the bottom of the tab, there's a couple good links here. First is the About page. You can see all the patrons that have supported Octolapse development over the last couple of years. Some notes about developers who've helped out with various things. Of course, Gina, the creator of Octoprint, definitely check her page out, be a patron of her. It's awesome. She's the one who made all this possible. All right, so thanks for watching this guide. Again, check for more. And thanks a lot, and happy octolapsing.